evening, everyone. Welcome to the 6th talk of the 2022 Ottawa Sailing Community Winter Speaker Series, hosted by the Nepean Sailing Club. My name is Stephen Kidd, and I'm your MC tonight. The series has 6 more talks each Wednesday till April 6th. The full listing of the talks you can find on the NSC website, nsc.ca. All the talks are being recorded, and you'll be able to see them on YouTube. Just search the Nepean Sailing Club there. Well, we're in our 16th year of these talks, and we hold them to get sailors together in the winter, to inform, entertain, and inspire, raise donations for the Legacy Fund to support youth, able, and other sailors in their training and participation in regional, national, and international competitions. While these talks are free of charge, we typically pass the beer jug when in person in the clubhouse for contributions to the Legacy Fund. So this year, since we're online, we've set up a donation system using Eventbrite, and we encourage you to consider contributing as you're able. And thank you in advance for your generosity. And thank you for all the generous donations that have come in already, well over $1,000. Well, these talks are run by a team of 4 of us. Tony Wright is our enterprising web guru who shies from no technical challenge, doing all the web work to publicize the talks and always learning as Zoom Meister to make it do more than we had thought it could. Park Davis is out of town skiing in Alberta this week, and he majors on the MC duties and gives experienced wisdom and oversight to the effort, and with lots of experience and wisdom, having been founder of these speaker series. And I'll fill in for him tonight since he's away, which I will do a couple times. Ron Evans is our newest team member with the Winter Speaker Series, and he lends considerable technical expertise and sophistication to the video editing. So you now see these talks posted very quickly on YouTube. Thank you, Ron, for doing this and for joining us. And I help with finding speakers, scheduling, working with the speakers in some cases, and otherwise mostly work behind the scenes with Tony each Wednesday evening. And I fill in for Park, as I said, as MC when needed, like tonight. And tonight, I'll be also supporting Dave Morralee as he presents, interacting with him throughout the presentation. Interested in helping us out with the speaker series, we'd love to hear from you. It'd be especially good to have a woman's perspective and even members of the BIPOC community. Last year, Melanie Aubert helped behind the scenes and as occasional MC, and it was great to have her perspective. And by the way, I know there are a lot of knowledgeable and experienced sailors and boaters among you. And if you'd like to speak or know someone who has a story or experience to tell, please contact any of us or Dave Bradley at publicrelations@nsc.ca. Well, to tonight's presentation. Amid COVID in 2020, Dave Morralee, a member at NSC, embarked on a solo sail for a 6-day, 300-kilometer adventure on the Ottawa River. He dubbed it Solo 300. He had done some solo sailing before, but not quite like this. On the one hand, solo sailing is not as hard as one might think, but there are certainly some things you want to be aware of and how to prepare well for one. And he's going to share that with us tonight. He will also share the story of his first Solo 300 and then a second follow-up one last summer with a team around him all sailing solo, thus the name Alone Together. Dave has been working for many years to raise funds for Camp Trillium, which is now called Campfire Circle, raising funds for kids with cancer. He raised $8,500 in 2020. Last season, as I said, he did the Solo 300 again, but this time with another 10 sailors joining him with their own sailboats, some for 3 days, some for 6. Well, just before we go and bring Dave on with us here, I want to ask that if you have any questions during the presentation, please use the Q&A icon, not the chat button, at the bottom of your screen where it says Q&A. We'll get to all of them at the end of the presentation. There you are. Welcome, Dave.
Well, thank you very much, it's funny to be at home and be nervous in your own house.
I am going to start the presentation by sharing my screen. Right, can everybody see that? Great. So you got started, Dave, some time ago. Off you go.
Yeah, so I guess welcome everyone, and thank you so much for asking me to come and join the Winter Speaker Series. The solo sail has been just an eye-opener and so enjoyable. So I thought I would just start with a little bit of the history, my personal history. So I immigrated from United Kingdom, from Oxford, back in the late 60s, and moved to a little town in Deep River on the Ottawa River. I started sailing at a very young age, around 8 years old, and my father had an old wooden boat called a GP-14, which is the predecessor of the International 14. And so I sailed a lot on that, and that's where my joy of sailing began. We have a little yacht club at Deep River called Deep River Yacht Club, and I started with the sailing school there. And I worked a lot with the cadet sailboat and the mirror dinghy. And actually, my first solo as a kid was taking one of the cadets out, and so at 9 years old, I was soloing my first boat ever, and that was usually a boat that held a skipper and a crew. So then from there, I went on to mirror dinghies, lasers, Hobie cats. As I got a little bit older, in early 20s, I sailed and raced 5.0s, and I think I did one race on an International 14, so that was quite exciting. From there, I moved up to Thunder Bay to Lake Superior, which is a massive, massive lake, and I still continued sailing, not so much, but with lightnings, mostly with lightning crews, and doing some racing up there. From there, I moved to Ottawa in '95, and started racing out of CGBR about 20 years ago with Frank Bernier and the Mary Brown. And so I've really enjoyed sailing out of CGBR, and it's a great crew there. In 2011, I joined National Nepean Sailing Club, and so I've been a member for over 10 years. We purchased a Tanzer, excuse me, a Tanzer 29, beautiful boat. So I continue to race a little bit with that. So on to, how did I get into volunteerism? Well, kind of a funny story that I started very young, because of coming from England. There's a charity group called Oxfam, and I started as a volunteer, helping my mom with charity work and drives for funds, doing walkathons and things like that. But I truly believe that in when we do these things, there's volunteerism, there's participants, and there's also somebody who comes up with the fundraising idea. So from there, other volunteer things I do is neighborhood watch for the captain, Nepean Sailing Club, doing the Midnight Madness, and I'm also on the board for the National Capital Ski Club, which I'm closer to right now because it's ski season. And then about 20 years ago, I started fundraising for Camp Trillium, and which is now called Campfire Circle, as an actual fundraiser. So one of the events that I did was the Super Day Invitational at Camp Fortune, And we did this event for about 8 years, about 4 different disciplines, and people were scored on their ability to come down doing short radius or long radius turns, synchro skiing and things like that. So that's how that was one of the things that I did. And the other one that I did for a following 8 years was the excuse me, was the Alcatel car show. And this is just a funny concept that I came up with. I was walking through the parking lot at Alcatel. There's 2,000 vehicles there, and I thought, well, we should have a car show. And this was really my beginning with Camp Trillium. I reached out and looked at different charities, and I thought this is right up my alley. It's children with cancer, children who recovered from cancer, and families that have lost kids to cancer. So part of my fundraising strategy has always been, if we all do a little, we can all do a lot. So I did 8 years of the lunchtime car show, and that was quite a big success. So on to that, I guess we could talk about really what happened with the first solo sail. Now, the first solo sail just kind of happened by accident. I was at home like all of us, and I didn't know what to do, and I needed a challenge, and we didn't have any holidays or anything that we could go on. So I thought, well, I want to challenge myself. So I thought, I've got a sailboat. And then I thought, okay, well, I'll take that sailboat and I'll sail it 300 kilometers. Now I need to do it for some charity group, and Camp Trillium Campfire Circle is my choice. So I phoned them up, and they were very excited. And so the goal was basically just to sail 300 kilometers over 6 days and learn to become a better sailor. And it definitely did. Now, as you know, that during that time in 2020, we had a tornado come through during my event, and that was a pretty crazy experience. But I was able to get to shore, find a safe harbor at Penny's Point, and the tornado and the big storm just missed me. But it was a very good initiation of solo sailing. I really didn't pick up a book. I learned by asking fellow sailors. Frank Bernier was a great help. He's a solo sailing king on the Ottawa River. So lots of questions to him. So other than that, I had to get some sponsors, and some of the sponsors were Nepean Sailing Club. They helped out in different ways. Kunstad Sports helped out, and Expects floatable sunglasses gave anybody or most people a discount on their sunglasses if they gave a donation to Camp Trillium. So then
just Dave, in case anybody's wondering how you do 300 kilometers on a 20-mile stretch of the Ottawa River, this is what it looks like.
Yeah, that's well, we're going to revisit that picture because
Yes.
it's a great visual, and I can honestly say I know the Ottawa River quite well now, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Dave, I wonder if you
So
could just say about Campfire Circle that they organize camps for kids and their families affected by cancer, but they also work in hospitals, right?
yeah, they've turned, because of the pandemic, they've turned a lot into doing a visual computer driven programs. and they do many of these throughout all the hospitals in the Ontario region. So so after I completed the solo one in 2020, once I got back onto shore, it was like, hey, I want to do that next year, and so I had a lot of people asking about it and things like that. So I decided, well, we'll do it again, and had no problem getting 11 participants. And one of the participants is actually a cyclist, Nicole. We'll see her later. And it was just a great team. We've all become friends, and as you can see right now, you have I call it the Brady Bunch picture. We've got people from the Nepean Sailing Club, a couple sailors from CGBR, and you also have Nicole there too. So that was a really good group of people, and again, we became all friends. And every night we would sit together and discuss technical things that we'd learned during the day. So other than that, one of the hard things that I found during the solo 2, which is the second one, was and you can show this picture, is the flying the spinnaker solo, and that was quite. It's a beautiful picture, but I'm glad I'm glad that Scott didn't take that like 5 minutes later, because everything was collapsing upon me. And so on the solo 300, that was just something I wanted to try and do. So as you can see, halfway up close to the mast, you can see one of our flags, and the solo 300 flag has quite a story behind it. Well, just a little funny story. Yeah, that's right there. So we decided to make pennants or flags, and what we did was we asked a couple the people in the group, and Stan said, well, listen, I've got an old CS22 sail, and here it is here, and so we cut it up or did the initial cut, and I went out and I followed the colors of Camp Trillium, which is, as you can see here, red, yellow, and green. So Bianca, my wife, and I were outside, and we did the first spray paint red, and then we did the yellow. Everything's going fine. And we're just about to do the green, and I said, you know, if we put a green stripe there, I think that's a country. So we rushed to Google and found out that if we put another green line there, it would be Guyana. And so what happened is we put the triangle there. And this was really great to have everyone had a pennant, so that during the event that we could all see each other. So each of us had our own pennant on the boat, and it was just a fun little side story of making the pennant for this. And here it's flying on Hunter. Is that your boat?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so there it is flying. And what was funny is when we would be at harbor, and our harbor was always Penny's Point, people were coming up, what country is that, or what flag is that? So it brought some interest. But you know, part of this little chat here is about, you know, how do you prep for it? And I can tell you how I prep for the solo sail.
Dave, just before you go there, I wanted to say, as we chatted earlier today, it was really neat to have these pennants, because those of us who were all involved didn't know each other, all of us necessarily, that well. And it was really neat because you would see a boat coming, and you could see if it had the pennant, you know, oh, that's one of us. And you'd wave and cheer from a distance. And say hello to each other before you even could see each other's faces. So it was really neat to be able to pass one another on the river and know that we're in this together.
Yeah, and we certainly had a very windy week that week for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can see my sails.
Yeah. So, what's the first thing I thought of when I started this idea of doing this? Is, well, I've got to, make sure that the boat's clean and tidy, make sure that the engine's well maintained, it has the proper oil, all the belts are working correctly, you've got extra fuel, you've got all these things. So I check the boat from front to back. I also clean the boats, because when you're prepping for the solo sail, you don't want to have any trip factors when you're actually sailing, like, cushions and a messy cabin. You want everything to be absolutely clean. That goes for all your halyards, your sheets. They want to be neat and organized. As you can see, I stole this one from the internet. But you can see, there's a sense of organization, cleanliness. It's so important when you're out there to be well prepped. I also went through, all the safety systems, from replacing my rescue throw bag, I think it's called, making sure all my flashlights worked, making sure all the CO2 detectors work, because we were sleeping overnight, or most of us or all of us were doing that. Making sure that smoke detector, having little things like a spare anchor just in case you lost one, making sure that your nav systems are reliable, they're up and running, VHF radio. And I think overall with the prep is try and think of eliminating any snags that are going to cause problems, in the future. So, but going on. Okay, so now you've got the boat prepped. How are you going to go about? How are you going to go about learning to solo sail? So, just a little tip or a little trick is start off by bringing a partner, a friend, bring them out sailing with you, and ask them not to touch anything, and you're going to do everything. That way you have a little bit of security there. And it's a good way of practicing solo sailing without actually doing that. Now, when you solo sail, you always, hope for the best and prepare for the worst. It's uh, anything can happen, and so that's kind of one thought I always have in the back of my mind. I'm always prepared. So I can go over lots of different things with how I prepare the boats sailing, but I'll just give you some points of solo sailing. So being aware of the wind, and if you have an increase of wind, what's your game plan? Are you going to bring the main down, or will you furl the jib? Or you have to always be thinking ahead, because the wind can pick up and you don't want to be set with full sails and be in a predicament of being overpowered by the wind and things. So if we take just a simple, let's take attack. I think that's a really good a good function that
It's a pretty frequent one
in solo sailing. And most of the time, if you make a bad tack, nobody's there to see it anyhow, so don't worry about it. So what I do with attack is I always think twice, do once. So I'm always preparing it's a process, it's a procedure, but you need to think about it before you do it. But as you're preparing yourself to tack, there's lots going on. You've got, when you look at the chart again, the the, the tracking chart, there's a lot going on there. If you're going across a river at 6-7 knots and you're coming in, you have to be getting the sheets prepared for your tack. You've got to be aware of the depth of the water. So as you can see there, I'm pretty surgical. I kept in, always kept in a around 10 feet of water, even though I know that I draw 5-2. So that's another good thing. Know what you draw. So I'm coming up. I'm getting ready to tack. What's the depth of the water? What are any obstacles around? Are there deadheads or sailboats? So I want to stay clear of that. Paying attention to the speed, the wind, and wind can be different. It can be constant. It can be gusty. So you can be looking at the wind patterns on the water and saying, okay, I'm going to go after this gust, or I'll go during the gust. But there's also tricks of you will learn. If you tack too quickly, then you've got to haul the sheets in by yourself, obviously, and that might be really tough in a heavier wind. So what you can do is you can do a slower tack going into the wind just a little bit. That's your pull point, and you pull those sheets in and then just bear off and away you go. So some of us even use our auto helm, and that really helps out. There's a bit of cheating, but you can actually use the auto helm to tack your boat. I don't know if some people know that, but that's a little trick Frank Bernier showed me, and I might have used it a few times.
So in particularly heavy winds, though, it turns you perhaps a little slowly, which is good initially, but I found that in heavier winds, it didn't complete the turn, and I was stuck. So I ended up doing a tack manually after that. So you have to know your gear, in what conditions it works best.
Yeah, and this is really from my experiences and asking questions to other sailors. It's not this is no way a book of how to. You actually have to go out there and, as you followed me after the solo 100, and you did for the Aboriginal group. You raised money and you went out in October, was it? And
Yes.
you did your solo. That's how we met. So
yeah, that's right. I was telling you about that earlier while you were offline.
So while all this wonderful thing is tacking and all these things that you're doing in your actual solo sailing, there's an important part, and everybody knows this, and it's all about the safety of solo sailing. And so I'd like to just have a couple little points on solo sailing safety. So mandatory, when any of us were actually sailing, we would wear a life jacket. And a little trick with the life jacket is, I have a Bowie knife on it so that it's always close by. It's not a trip factor or catch factor. It's hidden away. But having a life jacket is so important. So a clutter-free boat is, again, you don't want those trip factors. Something that I'm thinking of is, yes, you want to be clutter-free, but before you start sailing, you want to make sure that you have all the things you need, maybe that bottle of water or maybe a snack.
Or an empty bottle for something else in the cockpit.
Yes. That's a very good point. That's point number 85. Yeah. Yes, that's a very good point. Maybe we'll follow up on that one later. So every day that we would solo sail, we would look at the forecast, and as you know, forecasts can change, but at least you have a good idea of what sort of weather you might run into. And so that's really important to do before you start your day. And the radar app, a lot of us will have a radar app on our phones. And what this does is it can tell you where a storm cell is. And in 2020, I was following the tornado, but then again, my phone was going off because of, everybody saw it coming. So these are great apps to have. So radar apps are really good on phones. Not that I'm know anything about the weather, but always look up, look around, pay attention to cloud formations, maybe even look up a bit about the cloud formations. They can tell you a lot, but we all know dark clouds are something's coming. So be aware of that. Be aware of when you solo sail, if the temperature changes, that means something's coming, and prepare. So cloud.
I remember if I can interrupt, I remember my intermediate cruising instructor saying the very last thing he said to me after he gave me my certificate was, now listen, when you're out in the water and it looks like something might be coming, get off the water. Like, it can happen so fast. And I've been in situations where that did happen. In fact, we were sailing up to Penny's Point one of those days. Jed was right behind me, or a few boat lengths behind me. And we saw something coming, and I thought, holy smokes, do we make a run for it into Penny's Point and before it gets there? And I saw him turn around and head back downriver. So I did likewise. And boy, did it ever come after us, but it veered east and missed us. So then we turned around and headed back up. But from a previous experience where the heavens can open and white caps suddenly arise, I remember my instructor's word, and I wanted to get out of there.
Yeah, well, it's a learning curve, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Studying navigation charts is a great idea. It's also interesting. There's lots of obstacles. Outside of Constance Bay, there's all those wood piling or piles that were used for log booms and things. So studying navigation charts gives you one more up on the fact of knowing the river. It's important to chat with fellow sailors about the danger zones and the zones that you want to keep away from. So always study a navigation chart. It's probably a good time of the year to do that. So and again, talk to the sailors. And planning for sudden weather changes is very important. What happens? Big wind comes up, drop a sail. We had one rule that, or not a rule, but just if you didn't feel safe in the solo 300, you could motor, and it would mark your kilometers on motor would mark as much as on sailing. We didn't want people to feel that they had to sail in order to get to safety. So planning for sudden weather changes and having the tool of a well-maintained engine was always a great idea. So we didn't hesitate to use that.
So in your case, you were saying that in terms of thinking ahead and planning, you had a plan in your mind how you would lower your sails, in what order, and under what conditions. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. Have some sort of plan and just reducing sails in order to give you it gets a bit crazy when the wind picks up and you don't want to stress yourself out too much, but having a plan is better than no plan for sure.
Yeah. practicing reefing sails alone is a worthwhile thing too.
Yeah, yeah. So always have a safe refuge. We did most of our sailing around Penny's Point just for that fact. When I did the solo sail one, I naturally just turned up there because I knew I could always be there fairly quickly, be safe. Um, we had in solo sail two, we had a lot of wind from the Ontario side. So a safe refuge for me was, sailing along the Ontario shore because you're covered by the gentle hills there, and so always have a backup plan in your mind. If you need to get somewhere, you can usually get there within 10-20 minutes and be safe, and that relaxes you a little bit more knowing that. Handling the unexpected and staying safe, well, I guess this picture is a good indication. So I was sailing down from Penny's Point down to Canada Sailing Club along the Ontario side, um, not too close to the Ontario side, but fairly close. And I thought, well, the nice wind, it's not too windy, and I thought I would try putting the spinnaker up. So I put the spinnaker up, and I was doing everything great, and I knew that I was coming up to the club, the small club there on the beach, and I thought, okay, what's a good safety idea? And I thought, well, let's turn on the engine, have the engine running at idle, and that way, if I run into any trouble, I've got the engine to get out of there or whatever. So I doused the spinnaker, and I got everything put away. Well, I thought, and as I'm along the rail of the boat, I look over, and my sunglasses, thankfully they were floatable, dropped off my head and dropped in the water. So I said, oh no, well, this is okay because I've got the engine running. I'll just put it in gear and get the glasses. I hadn't made half a turn, and my spinnaker halyard got into the prop and basically stopped the engine. And now I'm, handling the unexpected, and I'm thinking, oh, what am I going to do? Okay, what's the first thing? Drop the anchor. So I dropped the anchor. It was in 30 feet of water. And the next thing I did was just to calm myself down. I cleaned all the boat up, got all the rest of the sheets all tidied up. And then I thought through, okay, how am I going to do this? So I decided to phone a friend, and I phoned Frank Bernier again. And I said, listen, Frank, I'm kind of in this predicament. And Frank also had a rescue boat, or a boat if we ever needed it, when I was doing my original solo sail. So I said, Frank, I need to go underneath the boat, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a life jacket on, and I need to go under and cut it away. I've safety measures. I put a floating buoy that's 20 feet connected to the back of the boat. So in case I got into any sort of trouble, I had a line there. And so he went over the problem, and he says, okay, yeah, good, go for it. And so I went through and gave him a phone call once I was finished. So you just don't know, and you have to be ready to think quickly and not panic, and so that's the big blue rope there is the trophy. As everyone I think knows, it's very important to have a set of goggles on your, in the boat somewhere in case that happens, and just take your time, and you can sort the mess out fairly quickly. Don't rush, and think twice, walk once. So
Do you think you went around tidying up the boat, the lines and everything, just to calm yourself down, give yourself time to calm down and start thinking about what you would do?
Yeah, exactly. Because you know, the mentality of the solo 300 is, for me, the first one was really for the challenge, but it was, I'm on holiday too, you know, like there's nothing to panic about. Take your time, get everything organized, think of a game plan, take your time doing it, phone a friend, execute it, and then away you go. And it was fine. So yeah, that's very true. That's why I probably did it.
The unexpected, eh?
Oh yeah, absolutely unexpected. So day 5, I'm sailing towards Nepean Sailing Club, and it's around 15 to 20 knots. It's a very windy Saturday, and I'm sailing along, and I've got the jib and the main, or the genoa and the main up, and I can see that there's an 18-footer Hobie 18 flipped, and I can see in the distance, I can see that there's a guy hanging on there, and I say, oh, okay, he's okay. And I see a pontoon boat, you know, chugging over there to give him a hand, and I'm thinking, okay, he's okay. And I'm just relaxed. I'm sailing along, and I look a kilometer up the river, and there's a figure, and he's just floating in the water. And I go, oh my God, that's the crew. So okay, so unexpected. What am I going to do? I'm going to power down one of my sails. So I furled up the jib, the genoa, and I headed for him. And when I got into shouting distance, I said to him, do you need rescuing? I know this sounds kind of funny, but you know, I needed to ask him if he needed to be saved, and he said yes. And I said, well, I can tow you back to your boat. Is that okay with you? And he says yes, thank you. And what I did was I tossed the rescue line, and I kind of button hooked the boat around him so that the line would catch, you know, finally catch him, just like a
Water
power,
skiing.
yeah, something like that. So I got a hold of him, and then I said, okay, I'm going to tow you a kilometer. But I had a nice conversation with him, because he said, well, what are you doing out here solo? And I said, well, I'm in a solo sail for Camp Trillium to raise money for Camp Trillium, and that's what I'm doing. And so I guess the end of the story is he sent $100. He sent $100 in, and I felt good for rescuing him, and the kids got some more funds, so that was quite fun. And so you know, just a nice little picture. It's amazing how close you can sail up and down. And this is the safe refuge I was saying, that it's great to sail along there, and try not to hesitate to do it, because it's really quite deep, very safe. And you know, on windy days, when the wind's coming from the west, or coming from the Ontario side, it's a good safe refuge. But you know, again, there are unexpected things that happen. And on day 5, I had a very unexpected morning, and I guess you can show that picture. And that's how my morning started. And the funny backstory to this was the fact that I got up, I got the coffee container, and I cleaned it out, and I got back into my boat, and I started making coffee, and
Didn't even notice it.
didn't even notice it. It wasn't until Frank said, "Hey, what's wrong with your dinghy?" And I said, "Oh." So that was day 5, unexpected. And what had happened is, before I'd gone to bed that night, I'd pumped it up a little bit to because it was cooler weather, and hadn't put the top on correctly. So yeah, so that's basically
The good news is you were able to fix the motor yourself and get it running again.
Oh yes, I did. I put on the way back to Ottawa on that day. Sorry, that was day 6. I mean, on the way back, I put the auto helm on, and we're doing broad reach run. And what I did was I completely I rebuilt or cleaned out the fuel system and got it running again on the back of my boat as I was going back to Ottawa. So
That's awesome.
yeah, true.
So the title of this evening is Alone Together. So you were alone the first time and we were all sailing alone in our boats the second year, but we were together, knowing each other by our pennants, and then of course spending the evenings and overnight together. So we had a good time together. Let's talk a little bit about the team.
And here's Frank Bernier. So Frank, you'll see the Mary Brown out a lot on the Ottawa River, and he was really he really helped me with my idea, and I call, you know, again, I call him the solo sail mentor, and he really helped a lot with that. Good old Manny, yeah, he's an avid sailor also, and he did 150 kilometers instead of the 300, and he quite enjoyed the adventure, and he was a lot of fun when we were at harbor too. So
absolutely. This is yours truly's boat.
Yeah, I don't recognize that name.
Yeah, it was an amazing time of getting to know one's own boat and what it could do, and that was a great experience. Great to get to know everybody else.
And Bill Nolan, great guy, great storyteller. You know, after we sailed, we chat a lot. Quite an interesting guy, and he actually there were a couple boats, but he was one that within 5 days he'd already done the 300, and he just kept going. He wanted to do more, so quite a champion for sure.
Awesome.
And
Stefan DeJordi in his Beneteau.
Yeah, and this Stefan had done this at the same time as us, and he was on this actually on the St. Lawrence, and he brought his daughter along, and he said it was just a wonderful experience for himself and his daughter. So a great, definitely a great. He did what I did the first year by himself, but he had a great time, and I really thank him for stepping up and doing this.
But it was neat because he came up to meet us during meetings, and we knew he was there doing it, and he knew we were all up doing it at the same time. So we still felt like we were a team together. Yeah,
so true. Oh, Stan was a real trooper. He was, I think he's his 3rd year of sailing, and he was out. He did about he was doing the 150 version, and he was out there, and yeah, he absolute trooper. We all admired him. He was, yeah, he had a hard time. Would you agree?
Yeah, he really stuck with it, and it was great.
And Scott, I don't know how Scott managed to make it out, because he was heavily involved with the nod. And one thing interesting with Scott, and I thought it was great, is one of the nights we were all together at Penny's Point, and we all started having a technical conversation about sailing, and it was super interesting. He brought some great ideas to the table, and we all started searching for what are we learning, and how, oh, it's easier if you do this than that. Well, my boat has this or that, and so we had some really good, you know, technical conversations, and Scott got the ball rolling on that. So it's nice to have him out there.
Scott's a ball of fun.
Oh, Jed. Um, so Jed is an awesome sailor. I believe he was at Cork, an avid sailor, and just a great guy to have out there with us, and so much fun. So enthusiastic, another great team player.
Mhm. He was a real inspiration to me, I have to say.
Oh, yeah, yeah, Eric. Eric was definitely a lot of fun. Also, he had a few engine problems, so some nights we were chatting and trying to get his motor running correctly, and he finally got it. But he just chugged through all the time, and the amazing thing about the Ontario 32 is it was okay in slow wind, but when the wind picked up, that boat just absolutely took off. It was incredibly fast and
Mm.
stable. And Jeff, he was a lot of fun. He put a note out up on Twitter, and within minutes he got an interview with CTV News, lunchtime news, and we actually and you were involved with this, myself, Frank, yourself, and somebody else.
Sailing by in the background.
Yeah, and trying to time that, and Frank nearly, well, he didn't ram him, but Frank came pretty close. It was a really good shot on TV for sure, but it was yeah. So he was a great person to have on board for sure.
Mhm. Last but not least,
Nicole. So Nicole knew about what we were doing. She's one of my friends, and she said, "Oh, I need to do something. I'd like to do something like this." And I said, "Well, yeah. What would you like to do?" And she said, "I'd like to cycle 300 kilometers in one day." So unfortunately, she picked one of the windiest days. So I'm sure it was good in one direction and not so good on the other. But uh, I can't believe 300 kilometers on a bike in one day. She's a triathlete, does a lot of really big events all over the world. So uh, great addition, lots of fun.
so just a few extra shots of us all out there.
Yeah, I think that's Igor is the one closest to my boat, which I'm in right now. And then the next one's Frank Bernier in a CNC 30.
That's Frank again, Mary Brown.
Frank in the famous pennant. Oh, yes. This was important. Every 2 days we got an ice delivery. It would come up somehow. And so we're all very excited because we had lots of Coke and ginger ale to keep cold. And so everybody got their allotment of ice. And you can see Frank right there just relaxing.
That was from the Nepean Sailing Club, right? That ice?
Yes, yeah. The Nepean Sailing Club gave us an allotment of bags, and that was just a great help. It's just trying to eliminate the stress of the sailors to worry about those things. So we looked after some of the amenities. Yes, a living room just turned up. That was nice. The Avera girls, Rhonda and Michelle.
Oh no, that's not somebody's sailboat.
No, it's a
pontoon boat.
Pontoon boat came up, and they were gracious enough to bring us the ice that day. And it was just surreal to sit in the couches and stuff after our day. And it was just, you can see how much fun it is. And it's an amazing experience.
So this is Manny, Frank, yourself, Scott, Eric, and Jeff, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And nighttime at Penny's Point.
And that was fun, rafting up together initially and then anchoring alone, some of us, and then just having fun talking about the day and our experiences, learning from each other. It was great to be together.
Yeah, for sure. So on day 6, the final day, we decided to all raft up together, and this is a great time because some of the boats who had only done 150 came out and joined us, and we all linked up. And the reason for this was that we got ourselves organized to do the parade going in into Nepean, and we'll show you another couple pictures. But here's a nice little video.
That was kindness of Manny to sail by and take that video, which is why you don't see him there, right?
That's right. I was counting boats and I was figuring somebody was missing. Yeah, thank you, Manny. That was great. And then we're all lining up to go back to Nepean. And here's a kind of a neat shot. Everybody coming in, they're all flying their pennants and
so that was half the fleet, and the other half the fleet were ahead of my boat. I took that picture. So it was quite a parade.
And this is the other side of the parade. I'm leading it. That's our boat right there. And it was just you can't explain it because you're coming in and there's horns going off, and the decks, the deck is full of people, and it was just great. All our family and friends are there, and it just made it not a circus, but it just made a lot of fun to come back to the group.
Somebody put a comment, it was Scott was said in the comments that as we came in, everybody could see that we were flying the pennants and they could recognize us as being part of the solo sail.
Yeah, correct. And finally, that's us all in clean shirts, I might add. So I handed out everyone a nice clean shirt because some of us weren't swimming, but Camp Trillium shirts. And so we've got Frank at the front. Jed is next to him. Eric, Scott, Bill. Up top in yellow is Jeff. Myself is next. Stephen, Stan, and the last one is Manny. We're missing Stefan because he was down on the St. Lawrence, and also Nicole. She couldn't make it. So a great way to finish for sure.
Well, great. Thanks so much, Dave. That was quite an odyssey, quite a learning experience, and a lot of fun together. I'm going to ask Frank Bernier to turn on his, or to unmute himself and turn on his screen. And I think I've just given you permission to do that, Frank. Or Tony, maybe
I think you have. I'm just not sure how to put on my camera.
So down at the bottom left of your screen, you should see start video.
Start video. I don't see that. Sorry.
That's all right. We'll take you by audio. Just as
whether you see me or not doesn't much matter.
Yeah, let me see if I can.
I just promoted him to a panelist, and so he should be able to do that now.
Yep. Okay.
How's that?
There you are.
Am I there?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. You're a little dark, but we can see you.
Okay. Sorry.
That's all right. So in a moment, we're going to take questions from the audience. There have been a couple put up there, but just to give you more time to ask questions, I want to ask you, Frank. So Dave has referred to you as his solo sailing mentor. Tell us about your experience solo sailing.
Oh, okay. Well, I started off sailing, I don't know, about 20 some years ago, I guess, maybe a little bit longer, not sure. And Dave was somebody that joined me in the fun of sailing early on, and he'd had some experience. Actually, he started sailing before I did. So it was pretty, we ended up hanging out together from skiing. I enjoy sailing a lot. Whoops, I think I'm gone.
Sorry, I just stopped sharing my screen, so
All right,
we should be able to see you now.
I'm still there, right?
Yep.
Okay. I'm a winter guy. I ski a lot and work in the business of skiing. So in the summer, I'm a little bit more relaxed. Therefore, I can ski a lot, sail a lot, excuse me. So yeah, I sail alone most of the time, unless I have friends that want to come. So, and Dave has been a buddy all along. So we've sailed together many, many times, and well, regularly actually. Not quite sure what else to say about solo sailing.
Well, that's great. We've got some questions coming in. So Frank, if you wouldn't mind hanging around, because maybe some of these questions you could answer as well.
Yeah.
So somebody asks, in your opinion, is having an autopilot a prerequisite to solo sailing?
If you're asking me, no, it's not a problem. Don't need it. It helps, but don't need it.
I found that, for instance, I set my autopilot when I wanted to put up my sails, motoring. I put my autopilot on, which works by compass setting, of course. And the wind was so strong, it wouldn't hold in my case. So I had to just tighten the lock on my steering wheel instead and keep my eye on things while I put the sails up and down.
I agree with you. I think the technology is good. You can point it into the wind, set it on auto, raise the sails. On my boat, I have to go forward to raise it from the mast. So it's convenient for me, but somebody with a smaller boat or a boat that's not set up that way could easily do it without autopilot. But, you can't count on the technology. You might have to just lock it, as you say, and go forward and raise it.
Mm-hmm. Anything to add, Dave?
No, I would say sometimes I use autopilot, and sometimes I just do the tack and able to hang on to the wheel. But there's different boat setups, smaller, bigger, tiller, wheel, and things like that. But both are manageable, both are doable. But sometimes technology doesn't work, and you push the wrong buttons, and you're not tacking. You're going in an opposite direction.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a bit of a. And as I said earlier, not everybody will see your bad tacks.
Right. Eric Fleury is just saying that he didn't have an autopilot himself with his 32-footer. And he said, raising from the mast, easy peasy. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, great. Jeff asks, considering how Super Dave grew the event from year 1 to year 2, what ideas does he have in mind for the third installment this year?
For the third year, what I'm thinking of and mentioned to all the sailors who participated in year 1 is bring a buddy, meaning bring another boat. I'm willing to double the numbers this year. And I don't want it to get out of control, or I want it to grow. The goal here is, and it has always been, is to educate people about Campfire Circle, and also make some money at the same time to help them out. Last year we made $32,000 for Camp Trillium, which is basically double what I've ever done in all my other 16 events. But I don't want to concentrate so much on the money. I mean, let's get out there, let's educate, let's have fun, and at the same time, we will make some funds and go from there. So next year, thinking of middle of August, have to look at when NOD is, or if it gets changed or something like that. But yes, definitely I'm planning on doing five of these. So year 3, 4, and 5 to come.
Rick Nelson says, I find docking the hardest part of solo sailing. Can you comment on that, Frank?
Yeah, for sure, it can be difficult, but you have to be prepared before you come into the harbor and make sure that fenders are all out, everything's ready. It has a lot to do with wherever your finger is, what's favorable, what's not. In my past life as a manager of the club at CVGR, often told people, learn to maneuver your boat out on the river. Don't practice doing it the first time you put it in the water. So yes, just be prepared, be ready, and come in slow with momentum and know where you're going.
And somebody told me, practice, practice, practice.
That too. Yeah, of course. It seems, I know we all know what we're talking about, but I mean, for sure, you just have to practice and be prepared.
Mm-hmm.
And, I notice with ski instructors or people that are accustomed to riding chairlifts, those are the ones that end up stopping the chairlift sometimes because they take it for granted. They're not paying attention. Next thing you know, they've screwed up. So it happens. Don't worry about it. Just try and be prepared as much as you can.
Great. Dave, you had a comment.
Yeah, and my thought is, I often tell people, as Frank told me when I got my first big boat, you are going to hit things. You are going to have little accidents, but you will, go out and practice outside of the river. But being prepared before you go in is number one. Number two is, just as I get into the harbor and I can see all the masts, I look up and I get a true wind direction. So I'm trying to build a map of where my dock is. Is the wind going to push me away, so I need to come a little closer, or is it going to push me towards the dock, or whatever? So I'm always cognizant of the wind. And also you have to change the speed that you come in. If it's howling in the club area inside the docking area, you have to have a little bit more speed, because I've seen people think that one speed will be fine, and then they get blown against other boats. So you have to adapt. I feel you have to adapt the speed according to the wind a little bit. Also, be aware of that.
So when we had haul out this year, I wasn't going to be, or last fall, I wasn't going to be available. So I had my crew take my boat over to the crane for me. And one crew, 23 years old, I entrusted him with it. But before I took him at the dock, and I shoved him off the dock, and I said, okay, come and dock the boat. And I had him do it about 5 times, and he got used to it. It was good.
Yeah, good point.
So somebody's asking, another Eric is asking, did you anchor each night? What was your daily sailing routine?
Our daily sailing routine, because it's not a race, we were never going around buoys. We could go anywhere from Quillon right down to Britannia, and we would sail where the wind was taking us. What's the easiest route? If the wind was coming from the Ontario side, we could go up and down the river wherever we wanted to go. So we would sail where the wind took us, because the goal here was to make kilometers. How are you going to make the most kilometers? Well, you know that if you're in a broad reach, you're probably a lot quicker than being in a beat position with your sails. So we were always aware of that. But it was a wonderful experience, because one of the days we went up past Constance Bay, the whole group, and we sailed as a group, and it was just, the wind was a bit spotty at that time, and you'd be seeing some other boats taking off, and you're wondering why. And it was a great. You remember that, eh, Frank? That time.
Oh yeah, it wasn't a race, but it was a race. Of course.
Boys will be boys.
Yeah, of course.
Frank, you had a comment to that as well, did you?
Oh,
Both the daily routine and
the
spending the
daily
night?
routine was pretty much go sailing, get as much in as you can, as long as you can, hang out with the buds, try and find boats, that are flying the Burgee. It was just good fun,
It's great.
pleasant time.
And our home I was going to say home hardware. Our home little port was Penny's Point, and that was just a great place. So maybe next year we might say, okay, on a certain day we'll go up to Constance Bay, and that'll be our finish point for the day. So that could be changed, and this changes as we go along every year. So it's really easy going, and so that's our port for the last couple of years.
Stefan says, any more than one sailboat going in the same direction is a race.
Of course it is.
Sweet. Jeff makes a comment back to docking about using spring lines. Just as a help.
Yeah,
So,
sure. Using a spring line, that's something I've seen. Using a spring line to drop it as you're approaching the finger dock, and that'll stop the boat. If all works well, I usually get off my boat before I have to use that technique. But that will work too. Yeah.
Great.
There's all kinds of ways to do things.
Sure.
And they all take practice.
Yes, they all do.
Scott says, Jeff and I got stuck at Constance Bay because the wind died. Dave, Frank, and Eric had wind near Moore's Island.
Yeah.
So just letting us know, I guess, why he wasn't up in the race. Scott says, Nod will be 17 to 19 to June to be confirmed. So not August. So that's good to know.
Good news. So we'll plan mid-August, and there'll be information out there on Facebook, Nepean Sailing Club, and all of those. And just talk to one of us, and we'll give you directions, and people can join at the last minute. It doesn't matter. And one of the neat things we did is gave everyone their own fundraising page, and that was quite fun because there's a little race going on there too. What are your funds at? Oh, mine's at this. And, well, you need to reach out to these people. So it became a fun thing. But again, that's not really important. It's just it was nice to have your own fundraising page.
Yeah, and it was neat because you could send bulk emails out right from that page and let people know about what you were doing. And
Correct.
If I may,
please.
I would like to thank Dave for doing it 2 years ago, and then roping in the rest of us to do it last year, and raising more money than he did the first time. But his guidance, his leadership to make it happen was fantastic. We all had fun.
You're here.
We all learned, and hopefully there's other people out there that may want to join us. And it's very good. Thank you, Dave, for that.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Nice comment.
So if anybody listening has ever wondered about solo sailing and wondering how hard it is, contact one of us, especially Dave or Frank, and just talk to them about it. And it's something that you can try. And then if you solo sail in your own boat a couple of times, then if you'd like, come join us. It's great fun to be doing this. You can do it for the full 6 days, or you can do it like I did last year for 3 days. And I plan to do 6 days this year. It's a great experience. You really get to know your boat well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't think we have any other questions coming in. So with that, I want to thank you, Dave, very much for coming and speaking to us tonight about your experiences, your background, your passion for kids with cancer and helping them and their families' lives be better. And thanks, Frank, for joining us and for being who you are, as you obviously had a huge influence in this whole endeavor as well.
I guess, yeah.
And so, as we traditionally do, I will thank you, Dave, and let you know that we have a Nepean Sailing Club cap for you in this color or this color. I think there might be red as well, or a toque. So we'll get that to you somehow.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much to the group for allowing me to come and speak about this. And sorry about the little computer glitch. It's a real passion, and once you do this, you'll understand. If we had all the Brady Bunch here, all the sailors, they would all have big smiles on their face because they all had a great idea or a great time. So thank you very much again, and all the best.
Thank you. All right, I will just finish by saying that next week, remember that we have our former Harbor and Yard Director and Paul Wagner and James Pohl, our Marine and Property Manager, talking about everything you need to know to get your boat in and out of the water at the NSC Harbor and Yard, and everything in between. They'll do some myth busting and inform you of your rights and obligations. So thanks everybody for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next week. Stay safe, stay well. Good night.